This is Paul Schmid. Welcome to the Pursuit Zone. Krushnaa Patil is a mountaineer and motivational speaker who became the youngest Indian to summit Mount Everest in 2009 at age 19. Between attempts to complete the 7 summits, she joined the Access Water Expedition, a 55-day, 1,500-mile journey along the Ganges River, also known as the Ganga. From Gomukh in the Indian Himalayas to the Bay of Bengal, the team of 8 women met with young people to raise awareness and inspire future leaders to work toward access to abundant, clean water. You can learn more about their adventure at yourexpedition.com. Krushnaa Patil, welcome to the Pursuit Zone.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
With all of your mountaineering accomplishments, I have to ask, why did you want to become a mountaineer?
Well, to begin with, I spent all my summer vacations in the Indian Himalayas, and every summer vacation was used to explore a part. My family was adventurous, so we never stayed in hotels. We only trekked and stayed in tents, carried our own ration right from Pune, which is roughly 2,000 kilometers away from the Himalayas. So it was a sense of adventure that was sort of in me since I was a child. But as I grew up, I was more and more interested in the Himalayas. It was one of the times that I looked forward to most in a year. And I did my courses when I was 15 and 17 and 18. And by the time I did my second course, which was when I was 17 years old, I had decided that I want to make mountaineering my profession.
In terms of the Ganga, how far away from that river did you grow up?
So if you know the Indian geography a little bit, the Ganga falls in the north zone, and it forms the most gigantic or the biggest plain in India called the Indo-Gangetic Plain. And I live in the Sahyadris. I grew up in a place called Pune, which is in Maharashtra, which is the central part of India, the southern central part of India. So I actually grew up very far away from the Ganga. But as I said, that I did a lot of trips into the Himalayas. I was 9 years old when I first went to the snout of the river Ganga. And that was one of my first high altitude treks. That was 4,700 meters. Yeah, so I did grow very far away from it, but I was always kind of connected to it because of travel.
What does the Ganga River mean to you as an Indian?
The Ganga is the name of the river, but it is also the name of a very fierce and strong goddess that we had. In the Indian mythology that we do have, it's a very strong character. So I've grown up with the stories of Ganga falling in love with the king, and it's a complicated or a multi-layered or faceted what she means to us. I really still have to figure out what the Ganga actually means to me. I mean, before I went on the expedition, it was the biggest river in India, a river that is the most densely populated area. You know, it was everything that I had read about it. I didn't really have a personal connection with what it means to me. But definitely after the expedition, I have come to realize to experience the many things that I had just read about it. And I'm still trying to figure out what it exactly means to me.
How did you become involved in the Access Water Expedition?
So in 2012, I was introduced to Leave through the Inc. Talks. Inc. Talks is based on the TED format in India. It's run by a woman called Lakshmi Praturi. I have been an Inc. fellow since 2011, and she introduced me to Leave, saying there is a team like Access Water. And there was earlier another Indian mountaineer called Bachendri Pal, who was the Indian team member, but she left unexpectedly. So Access Water was looking for an Indian team member. I met Liv on a Skype call and she said, well, welcome aboard. And I was super excited about the concept of the Access Water and what we were supposed to do or what we were aiming to do. I was on board immediately. I think in 2 days I had decided to be a part of the team.
What is the goal of the Access Water expedition?
The goal is to change the way this generation thinks and treats water. It's from big companies to small, and it all begins from education. Liv and Anna are both educators, and therefore, their way of doing more from an expedition is to involve with education. I think that what we're truly trying to achieve is to have people think about water and the way that we use it to be very different from now on. I think, especially rivers, whether it's America, India, or China, we're all definitely not taking care of our water systems. And so it's about education towards that and to learn from our expeditions on the river to actually make a change to it.
Tell me about your other team members in this expedition.
We have 8 team members. It's Liv and Anne. Liv is from Norway. She was the first woman to go solo to the South Pole. And Anne is from America. She was, of course, the first woman to go to the North Pole and the South Pole. And then both of them crossed Antarctica in 2001, becoming the first women to cross it unsupported. So these are our leaders. And then we have one woman from each continent. So we have Zhao Zhao from China, who's an economist. She has 3 master's degrees in economics and finance. So she's our brain and numbers. We have Lisa from Oceania, from New Zealand. She works with the UN for climate change and sustainable ways to live and green ways to live without leaving a carbon footprint. She also works majorly into indigenous peoples and their rights. She herself is a Maui from New Zealand. Then we have Kim Smith, who is from Cape Town, South Africa. She is a menstrual hygiene activist and she works with the government in trying to reform and educate people about everything from a small way to save water to have better education for children, everything government and social to sort of make a change in the way that the system works. Then we have from South America, Marcia. Marcia is engineer. She is also a safety and rescue mountaineer. So she does a lot of rescue operations. She also works for industrial safety and rescue as well. And she also is a designer. So she runs a fashion boutique as well. Then we have Ulfat from Israel. She uses outdoors to bridge the gap between the Jews and the Palestinians in Israel. So she's a national level volleyball player and a sportswoman. She also headed an expedition to Antarctica where they named a peak the Palestinian Israel Friendship Peak. I hope I'm not missing anyone.
It's quite a diverse team.
Yes. And then there's, of course, me. I think that's about it. That's all. Yeah.
Krushnaa, let's talk a little about the expedition. How do you get to the starting point?
Well, the starting point is Gomukh in Gangotri. So from Delhi, we drove up to Gangotri, which is where the temple of the Ganga is there. From Gomutri, there's a trek of about 18 to 20 kilometers to the snout of the glacier. This glacier is also called the Gangotri Glacier. The valley is called Gangotri Valley, so it's all the same name. But we trekked 20 kilometers to the snout of the glacier. We stayed a night on the way and then visited the snout, and then trekked back to Gangotri, and then rafted from Dev Prayag. Dev Prayag is where, so there are two main tributaries of the Ganga. One is called the Alaknanda and one is called the Bhagirathi. The Bhagirathi is the one that comes from Gomukh, and there's Alaknanda that comes from the Kedarnath glacier, which is a different valley. But they meet at a place called Dev Prayag, and we started rafting from Dev Prayag. So we trekked up to the snout and back and then started rafting.
How many rafts were there?
As long as we were whitewater rafting, we were all in one boat. Kim had not joined us because her job wouldn't allow her 2 months of a vacation. So she was given, I think, just 1 month, 10 days. So she joined us about 20 days late. So we were the seven of us till then. So all of us were in one raft with a river guide, and we whitewater rafted till about Haridwar, and then the same rafts went up to Allahabad, and then we switched to Zodiac boats, motorboats.
What was the reason for switching to Zodiacs?
The river is very, very flat after Allahabad. It's extremely flat. There's not much of a current. And the second thing was that we are an educational expedition as well. So we had planned school visits along the river. We had a curriculum about the water bath challenge was introduced through an organization called TERI, which is the Energy Resource Institute of India. Through their programs, we put the curriculum into, which will continue to be taught for the next 5 years to 6,000 schools in India. The schools that we could go to and speak to personally, we had planned visits all through the expedition till Kolkata. Basically, we had a scheduled itinerary to follow. And so Zodiac boats made it possible to make sure that we reach. Though even that was tough because we would hit a lot of sandbars because the water was not very high. And so we would have to row for kilometers and then again switch to the motor, and we would switch accordingly.
And do you have an expedition team or a logistics company behind you helping you with the boats?
Yes, we did have a team follow us on road that helped us with the logistics and petrol and stuff like that, because a lot of times the riverbank would have no village, or have a village but not have any fuel stations or anything where we could resupply. So we did have an on-ground team.
You mentioned the curriculum. Is it possible for anybody to get access to this curriculum?
The waterback challenge is online on yourexpedition.com, but we had the entire thing translated to Hindi and to vernacular languages to put it into the Indian curriculum. I'm not sure whether that curriculum would be available, but the waterback challenge is definitely available on our yourexpedition.com.
What was it like camping every night? When I saw Anne give her presentation, she said there was a lot of logistics involved in camping and trying to decide where to stay and to try and stay hidden. Can you tell me about that?
Like I said, the on-ground team would look for a suitable spot to be in. At times, we had to, because we had foreigners traveling with us, we had to inform the local police about where we were going to camp. So we couldn't even change location abruptly or be like, oh, we've just covered 70 kilometers today. So we had to cover as much distance as we had planned initially. So that did lead to a few adventures. We stayed at a farm one day, at a sugarcane farm, and the whole night we were surrounded by jackals and coyotes, I guess. There was one village where we had to ask the police to come be around, because there was just too many people that were walking by the camp, or they were not really aggressive, but it were large crowds, and nobody's seen foreigners, so they get excited in that sense. Though it wasn't necessary after, the first 1 or 2 hours of surprise element is done, then the crowd obviously, goes back to their own work. So we did have a few confrontations like that with the public. There was at one point I went and stood, with these bunch of boys that were standing and watching our camp, and I said, why y'all watching? Why? Now that you've seen it, why don't you just go? Now you can go home. And they were like, we really want to watch. Please let us just watch. We've never seen foreigners before. So it was just inquisitive ness, or just trying to wonder what the hell's going on. Why are these women come to our village and living on our banks? That kind of attitude or curiosity that everyone had. But of course, that did mean that there was a lot of coordination that was going on the back end. In terms of bringing food, water obviously we couldn't have water from the river itself. So the ground team would also have to make sure that they are getting water from the bore well or hand pumps that are there in the villages. So yeah.
How do you see the river change as you go along?
Oh, the river changes every single day on the expedition. Initially, like I said, it was pure blue, green. As long as we were whitewater rafting, it was just amazing. We body surfed, we swam, we drank it. It was glorious in the beginning. But by the time it comes into Haridwar, it immediately changes color. And I remember right before Kanpur, which is the biggest city on the Ganga, and the first one at that, we actually saw the spot where it was like a bluish gray to a brown. Like we actually saw the shift of color that happened. And that was quite shocking. I hadn't expected to see such a drastic change. I mean, it was actually like there was a line demarked, and it went from a blue gray to a brown. And then every day it would change. So till then, roughly it was the same. The banks would change, obviously, all the time. The vegetation changed. The people changed every 100 kilometers. I would say that people changed, their dialects changed, the way they spoke changed. By the time we came into Allahabad and the more religious places, Varanasi, the river takes one of the most stench smells ever, and that is a very, very difficult part to navigate through. Nobody wanted to get off the river to actually even, to push the boats or anything. We would be very, very careful about how we're getting into the water and how we're coming back on the boats. The most amazing change we saw was when we came into Kolkata, the district of Kolkata, which is West Bengal. West Bengal, women are supposed to be very strong women, and or at least that was what we'd read about and heard about, and we actually saw that, like, through the states of Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and a little bit of Jharkhand. It was always the men that came and spoke to us, men that asked us questions. And the women would always shy away and be in another room, or not even come outside to greet us or anything. But the moment we reached West Bengal, the women would come out to speak, and the men sort of stayed in the background. So that was one of the major changes we saw in the people. And the river, of course, deteriorated terribly in the middle. But as soon as urban life sort of leaves the river, I mean, the smell drops a little, the color becomes a little better, and you see that, I mean, it looks a little better. And the moment there's a big village or a big hub again, you see the water change again. So when it's flowing through uncharted territories where no villages, no major urbanization is there, it looks better.
What kind of wildlife did you see along the river?
We were actually surprised with a lot of wildlife. One was that we started seeing dolphins immediately after Kanpur, which was shocking to me because I had thought that they were already endangered and almost on the verge of extinction. But apparently, a lot of reservation and sanctuaries are run on the Ganga. A lot of them in the backwaters of dams that have been built, and the numbers seem to be good. We did see a lot of other wildlife. I mean, jackals and coyotes was something that we heard almost 30% of the nights that we spent on the river. We had a lot of snakes, we had a lot of frogs, we had a lot of rats, we saw foxes and horses, wild horses, a lot of dogs actually swimming across the rivers, which was something again surprising to us. We never expected to see that, and of course, dolphins, and a lot of birds again. I'm not an expert with either birds or animals, but we did see a lot of birds.
Krushnaa, you mentioned the educational component. I wanted to ask these river shows that you hosted. Can you tell me a little about what happens in the show and how did the children react to your message?
The children were generally very, very excited. They loved the curriculum. The teachers were very happy with the curriculum because they actually had something more exciting than a usual syllabus to follow, where they had to actually go ahead and do something and show the kids what they are doing or what they're trying to do. We had a brilliant response from the children. We actually got into discussions about them. In India, considering Ganga is considered holy, it's very difficult for children to understand that it needs help. And we did see a lot of change in the way that, the children are thinking and what they exactly want to do, whether they understand the seriousness of it. So that was the culmination for them of like work for 6 months, that they had worked on reports and they had worked on essays and poems and skits and plays to show how they would deal with this problem. For them, it was a highlight to actually be meeting, 8 explorers from all over the world who were actually traveling down the Ganga that they see every day. Every time we came back from a river show, we were quite heavy with the stories and with the kind of response that we'd got from the children.
What was the most challenging part of this trip for you?
Hmm. For me, it was to let my teammates know that India is, we do have a very, very strong culture and religious sentiments and values attached to the Ganga. But at the same time, we are ready for change, or that we want change. And that comes from dressing to the norms, to what men are supposed to do and women are supposed to do. And to convince them that it's okay if you do this in India, nobody is going to hurt you for doing this. You know what I mean? I think foreigners have, or the outside world does have, and are obviously told to sort of be very, very careful in India, especially for women, and especially for this, and especially if you're on the Ganga, and especially because it's not your culture, to be very, very careful about what you say or do or wear. And I think that that was something that I tried to convince or to tell my team, that it was okay to do this as a woman, whether Indian or foreigner in India, because it's okay. We're allowed to do it. We're not a country that has any law on what we should say or do or wear. So that was, I think, one of my challenges.
What part of the trip did you enjoy the most?
Every bit of it. Actually, when you came to the challenges question, I was quite flabbergasted as to what challenge. But yeah, in terms of enjoying, I think I enjoyed every bit of it. The time on the river, the time on the banks, trying to figure out logistics, trying to figure out the water, pitching up tents, packing them up every single day. I think that was one of the challenges, was to pack up your tent every morning and go to a new location. There was not one time that we stayed in the same location for more than 2 nights, maybe. So it was that routine of sort of packing up and putting up and packing up and putting up and packing up and putting up every single day, that was also challenging. But I think I enjoyed all of it. That was
Krushnaa, will you be on the next Access Water expedition?
Yes, for sure. I don't think there's any way they can keep me out. So yeah,
So we should mention that this is an expedition,
14 years. Yeah,
right? So every other year you will visit a river on another continent.
correct.
And,
Not necessarily a river, any water crisis on a continent. We'll follow a water crisis or a water problem, essentially.
and it will end in 2027, I think, in Antarctica.
Yes, that's correct.
What about this adventure are you most proud of?
Well, I think I'm most proud of the whitewater rafting. No, I am most proud that I have actually covered 2,500 kilometers of an entire river in my country. I think that's what I'm most proud of. Because the moment I heard about access water and that we'll follow the Ganga for the entire from source to sea, I was like, that is ultimate because that's the best way to see a country, that to your own country. So that's cool.
So if you have a message to send to people out there about water and kind of what action you might want them to take, what message would you say to people?
I would say that I've just come back from the expedition, and we are right now in. I live in Mumbai, Maharashtra, which is currently drought hidden. I mean, the entire country, about 4 or 5 states in our country, can get into a famine. We've not had a good rainy season for 3 years now. Farmers are killing themselves, and it's really bad this year. So in Mumbai, also, we are saving every little drop of water that we can. Just today morning, I was washing my vessels, and I was thinking of every time the tap was running even for a second extra than it is meant to. And I think that it is that desperation that we need to now think about water in, to have actually seen the rivers and noticed every water channel in my country. I feel extremely scared today to think about how we're going to sustain ourselves for even the next 20 years properly, like at ease. I don't think we can do that unless we are really thinking about it all the time and making sure to contribute to some way to save a little bit of water, even if that means to give up products that use a lot of water in manufacturing, and letting go of bottled water and bottled beverages to make sure that the water is sustained on the planet.
Krushnaa, what's next for you?
Well, I am hopefully on my way to Nepal very soon for Everest Base Camp trek. I have planned for Kanchenjunga next year, 2017, in September. I have a practice peak happening this year, so lots of mountains to climb in the next 2 years. The next Access Water expedition, which will hopefully be in America. So.
How can people contact you if they want to learn more or if they have any questions for you?
They can tweet me at High Realities or add me on Facebook. My name is Krushnaa Patil.
Can you say the Twitter account again?
My Twitter account is High Realities.
Krushnaa Patil, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us about the Access Water Expedition. Very interesting story, and good luck on the next summit attempt and also the next Access Water Expedition.
River. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Paul.
You're welcome. And oh, you know what? There's one thing that I forgot to bring up, and that is, how can people donate to the Access Water Expedition cause?
I think you have to go on yourexpedition.com for that as well. The curriculum and the donation is at yourexpedition.com.
Okay. Krushnaa, thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Krushnaa also has her own website at KrushnaaPatil.com, so go there to check that out. And this was recorded May 5th, 2016. For more great podcasts, visit thepursuitzone.com.